Right now, three big headaches for the White House. Benghazi was one thing. Add the IRS questions over the Tea Party and the Justice Department's AP overreach. Well, tonight, why is the administration seemingly off the rails this past month, and can they find a cure for their second-term blues? And next, stop and frisk. As the NYPD officer caught on tape seeming to use race in ordering who ought to be stopped and where, he took the stand once again today trying to explain that race was not the mitigating factor in how he applied that controversial tactic. Dominic was in Lower Manhattan. He'll tell us what went down. And later, Christine Quinn, very personal story, now part of her campaign for mayor. But many ask, is this thing planned, or is this just part of a personal narrative? And can they help buoy what some have called a floundering frontrunner campaign? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us on what has been a very busy Tuesday, May the 14th. Let's begin with the unfolding scandal surrounding the IRS. By now, you know the accusations. The tax agency improperly singled out conservative and Tea Party groups for extra scrutiny. Tonight, still no evidence linking that scrutiny to any push from the White House or, for that matter, anyone in the administration. But for some, there's no need to wait for connecting of the dots. For them, this is already a case of the president specifically targeting his political enemies.
Obama regime is using government to investigate people.
First of all, how dare the administration imply that they're going to get to the bottom of it? This was the targeting of the president's political enemies.
Others, they go even further, laying blame at the White House, and conservative columnist George Will saying that, hey, the scandal, it has echoes of Watergate. Even if one of the men who broke the Watergate story, Carl Bernstein, disagrees. Meanwhile, as the Justice Department announces a formal investigation into the IRS's actions, the president's forceful statement, it came out yesterday, leaving no doubt where he stands.
I've got no patience with it. I will not tolerate it, and we will make sure that we find out exactly what happened on this.
Well, that was yesterday. Now, fast forward to today, got a little bit more equivocation from the White House.
I am not aware of anyone here knowing about it. It would be obviously...
So it's down to your direct knowledge of being aware of anyone here.
Hans, you can ask me if, somebody who works on in the...
You've asserted something categorically, and I'm trying to understand how you know that.
I am certainly not aware of, and am confident that no one here was involved in this.
Hamana, hamana, hamana. For more now, let's bring in our panel tonight. Richard Brodsky, former New York Assemblyman, senior fellow at Demos, professor at NYU. He's already shaking the hat at me. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author, and a guy who was down in Lower Manhattan and hustled back for the show tonight, a former Republican congressman from the great state of Connecticut and distinguished fellow in public service at the University of New Haven, Chris Shays, and our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. All right, Congressman, you saw some former colleagues, including Darrell Issa, saying, listen, the White House, I don't want to hear how outraged they are. This is from the administration. Can you connect the dots from the IRS to the administration when, as I understand it by law, the White House isn't supposed to interfere in anything that the IRS does?
Well, first, the misuse of the IRS is scary. Yep. Connecting it to the president at this time would be totally unfair and will derail the investigation, and Republicans will lose credibility if they jump right there. But the bottom line is, nothing is more scary than to think your own government is going after you because of your political views. And so, it does have echoes. It's a bad echo.
Is the problem that they put the Tea Party under scrutiny, or is the problem that they didn't do that same standard to everybody? Did they go too far with them, or was it selective prosecution?
I think they have to check everyone, but it sounds like it was selective.
And Richard, we've heard the arguments. We know of nonprofits on both sides. Democrats in 2004 kind of got ahead of this. In 2008, the Republicans used it, where you've got these groups like the Crossroads, et cetera. And again, to really simplify this, you can have these groups that can push policy, but they can't push politicians. But it's a blurry line sometimes here. Was it right for the IRS to go after him,
I agree
or not?
with Shays.
Yeah?
Don't quote me. I think he phrased it exactly correctly. This is unacceptable to anybody, under any circumstance, for any purpose. To go beyond what you can prove means that you're using it for reasons that have to do with something other than the wrong that was done. And the question you raise becomes good, because what it turns out they were looking at was tax exemptions for what was called social benefit.
Yep.
Now that's baloney, but it's baloney on the right or the left. This was a mistake. Whoever is responsible should be called out and punished. And the attempt to use this, it's more of the same nonsense from the fringe, nutty right wing of the Republican Party.
But you know what, Dominic? It feeds into this whole idea that people said, hey, you know what? You got a government that's playing favorites here, and they're singling out those. I mean, if you even take some of the gun debate, a big government going too far, overreach, and you know, we joke about it, but then this story comes out, and it's like manna from heaven for the Rushes and the rest to say, see, we told you.
Second-term blues, like almost any other presidential administration, but this administration has a serious problem here. When you add them all together, Benghazi, the journalists, the IRS, there's a problem. And you know, as Democrats can say it's not a problem, but how would you feel if you were one of these organizations seeking tax exempt status? It's just bad all the way around the board.
And it certainly works to undermine confidence in the government, which impacts things like the gun debate or the health care debate, as you mentioned, Rich. But there's another point to make here, which is that these groups with their tax-exempt status, it's sort of unregulated Wild Wild West campaigning here. They're not regulated by the FEC, the Elections Commission, which really leaves it up to the IRS to check their tax status. And we still don't know, A, how far that went within the Obama administration, but also B, whether this was just being done to conservative groups or whether it was also being done to groups on the left as well. There are a lot more conservative groups who file for the status than there are Democrats.
Indications are that they were going directly after the Tea Party folks here, and with a singular purpose. Now, maybe there were some others, but it certainly seems they were singled out. Andrew raised the point. Is the IRS here basically the dumping ground that nobody else is doing this? They're not staffed to do this. They weren't designed to do this. And moreover, we're finding out these investigations happen 2 years after the elections even take place here. It is the Wild West, right?
Well, no, the thing I want to know is, did this investigation take place beforehand, and did the White House know before the election? Then there is a little bit of a feel of a cover-up.
Well, the IRS acting chief is going to at least reportedly appear before your old colleagues on Friday. I think he will be a human piñata, I would imagine.
Let's just see this for what it is. It's wrong if the facts come out as they are. It ought to be dealt with. This second-term blues thing, would you people relax? And I mean you people in the journalist sense of the word.
Very inappropriate.
There we go.
By the way, Dominic, he went there for a 608. Yeah.
Look, you have many identities.
Just stop. We're taking a break.
The fact
we go ahead.
He's going to be called before going.
Yeah, thank you. When we come back on RFL, we're going to go from one scandal and another, so you'll have plenty of time to talk about it. Your next favorite subject, Benghazi. Last week's hearings leading to calls here for more investigations, even, Richard will love this, a special prosecutor. Is there enough there? President says no way here, or is this just another example of political opportunism? We're going to get into that after this.